Welcome to the Amatoria podcast with Marvin Allen and Justin Don. Join us for a journey through the art of love across the world, guided by timeless wisdom and lived experience.
In your nice guy mind, you're thinking I should do the opposite of that. I should be the nice guy. I shouldn't pursue, and I should try to communicate with everyone around me. I see you as this total person and not just this beautiful girl that someone wants to sleep with. And it's actually a really judgmental and shitty way to go through life. That nice guy doesn't do anything to get women interested in you anyway. They're not willing to become a man, and women want to be with men. They don't want to be with boys. Like you said, life is short. It took me close to 50 years to start figuring this stuff out. I don't want that for anybody else. I love younger guys like you. You're figuring it out at such an earlier stage of life, and you're going to have such a better experience of life. All those extra years, of greatness to enjoy. So that's why I'm here to help support men in the journey, and I see that as like a life mission of mine now, to give back, because I've learned so much.
Today we have another edition of the Amorati Spotlight. He trained with Robert Glover, and he's an expert on nice guy behavior and people-pleasing patterns and how that sabotages the majority of men's lives. Men that are great at business, great at what they do, and when it comes to women and chasing what they want in life, it just doesn't apply. So, Jeff, who are you, man? What is your story with women? And tell us some stories, man. Who are you?
Who am I? Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. I am a man who loves women. And at this point in my life, I've figured out a few things. I figured out a few things about myself and how I've showed up in the world for most of my life. And that is in a very people pleasing, approval seeking kind of way, and
Hear
hiding.
that?
Yeah. Hiding from life, hiding from responsibility, hiding from stepping into my true power as a man in the world.
Hmm.
And so that's who I used to be. But because of the work I've done within this community and showing up to that, it took me 3 years to take essentials for the first time, because I was so in hiding and I was so insecure,
Wow.
and I didn't want to like have anything required of me. I was so in my comfort zone, and I knew I was going to have to show up to calls with other men and reveal myself in some way, and that scared the,
Wow.
the living shit out of me. So it took me 3 years, because once I found Zan and the message and everything he was trying to teach, I knew that that was the guy that I wanted to mentor me, you know. And and even still, it took 3 years to jump into it. But once I did, my life started to change pretty drastically. Then simultaneously, I started learning about the nice guy syndrome that Dr. Glover has laid out, read the book several times, read his Dating Essentials for Men book, which goes hand in hand with No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Mhm.
And that also was a huge revelation as far as women and dating and relating and masculinity. And so between what I learned from Zan and what I learned from Dr. Glover, and actually getting out in the world and approaching girls and trying to make something happen and working through all that anxiety, and what do you say and what do you do, and all these stories that come up within us as we're trying to figure something out. Eventually I just start to figure some stuff out and start to become extremely comfortable in my own skin. So that's where I am now. And I'm in a really good place in my life now. I'm the most comfortable I've ever been in my life. And I can walk
Powerful.
into any room. Yeah. I can walk into any room and represent myself now and have a conversation with anybody and approach anybody. And especially if a woman that I find interesting, I have the ability to approach anyone I want. So that was that was something I was never able to do in my life for most of my life. So it took me quite a few years to figure that out. So that's where I am now.
Hey, what a journey,
Beautiful.
man.
And it's
What a
not your
journey.
fault. It's the way you were raised, right? It was the you're being told being a man is bad, desire is bad, prioritize other people over yourself. Marvin and I
Yep.
relate to that heavily. So, and I
Yeah,
would
Yep.
assume most men do
I
as
would
well.
love. I would love to hear more about the. You said you were afraid to show up in the beginning, even to a call with other men. Could you maybe expand a bit more on how you were feeling back then? What was kind of holding you back, and what eventually made you, take action and join the Amorati and go on calls?
Yeah. Well, one of the key nice guy traits is separation from other men because there's something within us as we're growing up kind of believing this lie that masculinity is maybe bad or a man going after what he wants with women is a bad thing to kind of find the approval of women. In your nice guy mind, you're thinking I should do the opposite of that. I should be the nice guy. I shouldn't pursue, and I should try to communicate with everyone around me that I see you as this like total person and not just this beautiful girl that someone wants to sleep with, right? So you're trying to communicate that constantly to sort of separate yourself from the other men. So you're like set apart. So you're like showing yourself as maybe more valuable than other men. And it's actually a really judgmental and shitty way to go through life. But it took me a long time to figure that out and understand that about myself. A. And then B, understand that that nice guy stuff doesn't do anything to get women interested in you anyway. So, because I was so separated from other men, I never really had great, strong relationships with men. I always had relationships with women, and not only in a sexual sense, it was more like a friendship sense. I always had girlfriends around that, friends that were girls. And because of that, you guys know it's like being a part of a men's group, we tend to challenge each other in different ways. That's how we grow. And and that's how we can grow our masculine together.
Hmm.
And I always separated myself from that. So that's why getting around other men, I found it very intimidating. You know, on one hand, I'm like being so judgmental, but it was really to hide my insecurity that I couldn't measure up in the room. And it took a long time to figure that out and unravel that. But now that I have, the interesting paradox of it is I still love women and I want women in my life and I love sex and I want all of what that relation with women can provide and standing in femininity and enjoying femininity and having femininity raise my consciousness as a man and in my masculine to actually help my masculine become stronger. Like I see all of that value. It's an incredible thing. However, I see my relationship to men now as even more important because I know that I can grow in a different way amongst my brothers than I can with the women in my life. So that's kind of also been another interesting sort of change in my life. Um, Especially as I have stopped seeking the approval and validation from women. It's that the relationship to that and the feminine is just in its proper place. It's not everything for me anymore, where it used to be everything. Now my everything is, well, how do I feel about me? What's my self-love about? What's my self-respect about? And what am I doing with my brothers in this container of a brotherhood to make ourselves better, to make ourselves the best we can possibly be so we can fulfill our life mission, whatever that is for any of us. And then the women are there to be the icing on the cake of that life, you know? In essentials, and what Zan's laying out for us, we're talking about the horizon we're all looking out toward, right? It's like our
Yeah.
mission, our purpose, our passions, all these things, our adventure, all these things in the horizon that we're looking out toward. That has to be our priority. As soon as we make women the priority, they're going to reject us from their lives anyway. And I've seen and experienced that countless times. So that is a very true thing. And that is the way I'm living my life these days. And it's empowering. And I have friends now with my brothers, that these kinds of friendships that I've really kind of craved my whole life, and now I finally have them because I'm making that my focus and my priority.
So two things come up when I was listening to you. One is men are raised by women much more than in any point in history, right? And so what's very interesting is in schools, in homes, we don't necessarily need to talk about how there's fatherless homes and stuff, but that does exist. And so when you don't have that father figure to push you over the hill, when mother's like, be safe, don't take any risks, don't be adventurous. And if you take it and relate it to indigenous or Native American cultures, right? There was always a lineage or a tradition of men showing the boys the way, and then they would throw the boy into the wilderness, and he would have a spear. Like you think of 300, he just has a spear, and he has to kill the animal and come home, and then he's pronounced a man. We don't have that at all, right? And you're raised by women, raised to seek the approval of women, and women wonder, where are the real men? Well, they're not here because you turned them into a woman,
Right,
right?
right.
So yeah, what you're saying is spot on. I think it speaks to something that's missing in the masculine consciousness.
Well, what you just said, Justin, is one of the most important things. And it's one of the most important things as modern men in the world that we need to come to understand and realize. And
Yes.
that is, we did not get an initiation rite of passage
Right.
like our ancestors did. And because of that, and because we don't, and because our fathers and uncles and brothers are also nice guys and also didn't get those initiation rites,
Wow.
they also they have a very limited vocabulary and limited experience in which to then help us come
Yeah.
along and initiate us as well, right? So, and think about the initiation. Like you said, you're taking a boy away from mother and away from the safety and comfort of mother's embrace,
Security.
and the security of that. And the women at the time during these initiation rites, they were complicit in this. They knew how important it was for this boy to make a transition. And they might protest, like they might act the part a little bit, like
Hmm.
protesting, don't take my little boy, don't take my little boy. But then the men, these strong virtuous men, take the boy out to the woods or to a spear with a lion or whatever it was. And that event, it's almost like a life or death kind of an event. And that's the way it kind of occurred to the nervous system of those young men.
Wow.
And they had to stand in that, figure out a way to overcome that. And when they did, on the other side of it, now all of a sudden, when they go out into the world to then contribute to the tribe in the hunt or as a warrior, they know what they're capable of, right? They know what they've been able to stand in within that initiation rite of
Yeah.
passage experience, and now their nervous system is a bit calmer. They know what their strength is. The other men are teaching them to, how you behave as a man in this tribe, how you behave with the women. And it made it a young man, as he's coming into that adulthood, understand what he's capable of and how he then is expected to contribute to the rest of the society.
Yeah.
And because of that, he now has a purpose, right? He has like a direction that he can move toward. He knows what his value is now to the world, to his tribe. And as we're like sitting around as modern men trying to figure out, well, why don't I have ambition? Why don't I know what it is I want to do with my life? Why am I
Wow.
okay being comfortable just sitting on the couch eating potato chips and playing video games all day long, right?
It's
It's
good
because
enough.
we didn't get this. We did not get this. And so, unfortunately, modern man is paying the price for that. And unfortunately, modern women are paying the price for it as well, because it is very rare for a woman to experience a man who has fully transitioned into his manhood and who is powerful and who is capable and who is going, within that masculine energy that he possesses, and that he's going to be able to actually create this platform and foundation of safety for her to be herself in, for her to dance in. And so that's where we are. And that's why polarity between men and women these days is so askew, and why women are more in the masculine role, because somebody has to do it. Somebody has to step up and lead. And a lot of the times men aren't willing to lead, and the women are the leaders. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
that's kind of, a quick primer as to where we are with dating and relating in 2025, and the frustrations of men and the frustrations of women too. So,
You know, hearing you, and I want to hear your thoughts on this after Marvin. Zan says it very concisely, very poetically. He says, all over the world, women are strong and men are not. Women are strong because men are not. I quote verbatim. It's because men are not stepping up, so that women have to take that role. Because if no one's going to take care of them, they ended up having to take care of themselves, right? And
yep.
so I think our discussion has been revolving around this warrior archetype of man. He will fight and he will die for what he loves. He will kill for and die for what he loves. But what's also missing, and I think you think of the prevalent messaging in our society. You think of red pill, you think of black pill, you think of other messages that are out there. It's almost like it's positioned as a fight against women. So they're all warrior, right? Don't be a pussy. But there's no aspect of lover, of men leading the dance with women skillfully as men. And there's no, it's like, it's against mediocrity, right? The fight. It's not against women, but the mistake is that most men with red pill understand women, but they hate women because of it. And how can that be a viable solution if you want to speak to this warrior lover, dichotomy that is absent in our society? Where are the great lovers of women?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it comes back to our responsibility as men in the world to also come into our empathy, and trying to put ourself in the shoes of the other, in this case women, and understanding that yes, men are we have been indoctrinated into a system that is like, don't let your masculinity be toxic, and don't let your masculinity be maybe too forward, and
Mm-hmm.
and we have been raised by women, and our teachers mostly have been women, and so we've been born into something that doesn't quite show us that there is a value and that we are valued for our masculinity. But it's all a lie, because benevolent masculinity, a man who does show up and wants to create safety and wants to see you and wants to be conscious, um, and has a plan and has a direction and wants to do good things in the world and do good things for those around him, that is extremely valued. And it's up to us to create the new programming in our mind that that is valued. And we have to believe that. And then believing that, yeah, are women perfect? No, of course they're not perfect. They're not an enlightened species. They are just as flawed as we are. They actually probably have more trauma in their lives than we do. That trauma, and them just also trying to figure out how to negotiate life like we are, it yeah, does it cause some bad decisions like we all do? Yes, for sure. Does it cause women to show up and behave in certain ways that aren't so great or maybe very superficial or whatever? Yeah, it can. But that's not all women, you know? And so it's like having some compassion and empathy for the women that aren't showing up in a great way or in a great space, um, but also honoring the women who are trying to do that, and who are conscious, and who are trying to restore beauty between men and women, like we're talking about. And because there are countless women out there that want to do that, and they want to have a great experience with men, and they want to soften and follow the right man who they feel like that they can trust, but it's up to us as men to understand that we have to earn that trust. And it's up to us as men to also understand that the masculine isn't better than the feminine. It is an equal, they are equally important forces that complement each other. And this is how men and women can really come together and push each other forward. And but at the end of the day, it's up to us to lead it. Women are looking to the men around them who are hopefully conscious, trustworthy, to lead. And that's what we talk about. That's what I talk about on our essentials calls, as a mentor. And
Yep.
this is part of my mission now in my life, because I've come to an understanding, and I've experienced some amazing things with the women in my life, and just how we can heal each other within the ways we show up, that I want to just help other men achieve this before it's too late. Like you said, life is short, right? It took me close to 50 years to start figuring this stuff out. I don't want that for anybody else. I want, like, I love younger guys like you, because you're figuring it out at such an earlier stage of life, and you're going to have such a better experience of life. All those extra years, of greatness to enjoy. So that's why I'm here to just kind of help support men in the journey, and I see that as like a life mission of mine now, to give back, because I've learned so much.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say before that two things came to mind when you were speaking, Jeff. And the first one was that when you talked about being in men's circles and not needing the approval of women, there's something that came to mind that Zan says a lot, which is that he doesn't, in some sense, he never cares for the opinion of other guys or other men, but he does, in some sense, care what women think of him. In some sense, so I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and maybe you can clarify what your interpretation is of that thing that Zen says. And then the second thing would be that we talk a lot about that there's no, as you said, there's no fathers, there's no uncles that could guide us. We had to go to Bucharest, right, or Las Vegas to find our mentors. And it seems like you have taken on part of that mission to help other men in that journey so that they they can find these mentors more easily, or you can even support them more earlier in life. So maybe you could speak to those two things.
Sure. Well, the
Wow.
first thing I'll just tell you what I know. I can't speak for Zan. Obviously, I don't know exactly what he's feeling and thinking with that in that, but I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I know as a man in the world who is in my masculine, I am keeping my own counsel. I know what's best for me. Nobody knows me better than me. So I know what's best for me. And I know what's true for me. And based on knowing what's true for me, I know how I want to live my life. I know who I am, I know what I want, I know the direction I'm going in, and I know what my values are. And I think every man should sit in that question of what is true for them and to develop the courage to live to that, because that's the other component. And when we have that courage, you have to become vulnerable on some level to develop that courage, because you're going to risk losing people you love in your life, you know? And that's just the way it is. But at the same time, you're going to be bringing other people into your life that are more suited to be there. So having your self-love, self-respect, self-forgiveness, this is where to begin, knowing who you are and what it is you want in this life. Having said that, I know myself pretty well. I'm pretty honest with myself. I sit in these uncomfortable feelings of my childhood or of how I'm showing up in the world for the good and the bad, whatever. Having said that, I'm always aware that I may have a blind spot. There's something I might not quite see. And for me, this is the extreme value of women in my life, because the gift of the feminine and of women is of sensitivity and is of intuition and is of feeling. Women feel things that it's like you think they have a sixth sense, like there's something magical there. And there might be. But women are so in their feeling body because they've developed that, because it gives them more of a survival advantage. They have to know what's going on around them. They are the weaker species. They are the prey. I hate to say that, but it's true. And so they've had to develop this sensitivity, um, that we don't quite have as men and in the masculine. And because of this sensitivity, and because of this intuition and this feeling that women have, they have a perspective on you that you don't necessarily have. And because of that, she can really help raise your consciousness of who it is you are, or the things you're not seeing, or your blind spots. And this is how women can make us better. This is how women can make us stronger as leaders in the world and as men in the world, and make our masculine stronger and better and more benevolent and more valuable to everyone that is in this world, and that is in your circle, in your sphere, right? So that is, for me, why I love the women in my life, and I love to hear their opinions and I love to hear their perspectives, because it's usually something that is completely, different than my logic focused, or and like doing focused brain. So so I would say that for that piece. And then the second part, I'm not really sure the specific question in there about the mentorship. Can you put a finer point on it, Marvin, for me, that second question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you kind of felt like you maybe you're taking over in a metaphorical sense a father's or uncle's role for a younger generation in the work that you are doing right now.
Yes. I think it's a natural time for me to do this too, because as I am approaching my 50th year on this planet, yeah, I've seen some shit, and I've experienced some things, and I think it's a and I figured a lot of stuff out for myself, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm always going to be to the day I die. I'm a student of life to the day I die, right? So it's like I'm also making peace with that. It's like I'm never done on my self-development journey. But yeah, I'm down the road a little bit, and if I can help other men figure some stuff out earlier than I did, I see that as a tremendous success. If I could like step into that role as a bit of an elder to help guide and give some perspective and really just help raise the awareness of other men around me to facilitate them being able to live a more empowering life and their best lives, then yes, that's what I want to do. I just want to help as much as I can.
So in that I hear there is a reclamation of truly great masculinity that needs to happen. Because how many guys are out there without a good message? Marvin, you and I talk about this a lot. How many guys are on the edge? They might even kill themselves. But if they just knew that an Ars Morata message exists, that there's a message of hope, that, oh, being man isn't a bad thing. You can actually be fully yourself and be loved for it. And how many men aren't aware that that exists? And it's, in a way, I consider myself lucky. I consider us lucky because we, through whatever circumstance, whatever happened, maybe it's because the girl was the call to adventure. We felt like, wow, I could never be good enough for that girl. That seems so unattainable, seems so unreachable. And you don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes. But then it ended up with us coming and seeking out our mentors, Johnny Saporno in Las Vegas, Zan in Bucharest, Romania. You never know how deep the rabbit hole goes when you're truly pursuing your true self, who you actually are meant to be, right? So I think, what do you think about that, Jeff? The reclamation of great masculinity that needs to happen that isn't in a fight against women, because that is the majority of the messaging that we see in society.
Yeah. I think if we, given what I just said about the complementary forces and how the feminine can make the masculine stronger and better,
Mhm.
I think that's just something that we have to have in our minds. And also showing up that way and speaking that to the women in our lives, and doing that in a consistent way, that is a beautiful and powerful invitation to have the women come into that on some level, on some level. And most women will never hear something like that from a man in their entire lives. So just having our awareness as men in the world of the importance of the feminine and the women in our lives to help us understand ourselves better. And not that we're ever substituting our opinion for other people. No, but we're weighing carefully. We're asking ourselves, you know, this girl said this to me once, and then there was another girl that said this and whatever, and just asking ourselves, where might she be right? She might be right about something. I need to look at this. And in terms of the journey of authenticity, this is the most important thing, whether within the nice guy paradigm or within our community, within our Zamarata. And I'm going to tell you what I have learned that has me understanding on a deeper level than ever before why us showing up in our authentic selves is so vitally important to life. And it's this: if we don't fully show up in our authentic selves and say, this is who I am, and this is what I want, and this is where I'm going, and I love women, and I love sex with women, but I'm not willing to take it from anyone without their permission. Whatever is true for you, really speaking it and living it. If we don't do that, we will never know what it's like to feel fully accepted by another human being. Think about that. Because if another human being is allowing us into their lives or into their bodies based on half truth of who we are,
Hmm.
right? We're not fully experiencing being fully accepted because we're hiding something about ourselves. There's something we're not speaking about. But once you do step into your full authenticity and you're willing to speak the truth and live to your truth and say what it is that you want, and you think the other person's going to run away, right? You think they're going to be rejected. This is why we're living in that toxic shame to begin with. We think
Hmm.
we're going to be rejected because they're going to see us as bad or something's wrong or um, yeah, there's something about that guy that I don't want to be around. Whatever it is, when you sit in the reality of who you are and you actually see that no, this person, they actually do still want me in their life and they do accept me for who I am, despite all of these negatives that I think are happening in my mind. Now you start to feel fully accepted. And that is the most profound feeling and gift that I have felt in the last few years. It is absolutely incredible. And this is another thing that we used to get in our initiation rites as young
Hmm.
boys, because after the initiation, then the boys come back to the tribe now as men, and they're fully accepted by the tribe as men. And they got to feel that acceptance and they got to feel into, okay, now I'm a man and I have to go out on the hunt and I have to be the warrior and I have to protect and provide. And this is my purpose. And this is my value to this tribe. And I'm being valued in profound ways by the people around me and accepted in profound ways by the people around me,
Hmm.
my peers, right? The people that are part of my group, which is so important for us as human beings to feel. And so I would just I would just really sit in this idea, whoever's watching this podcast, of the importance of why you should be presenting your authentic self and living to that truth. It's the feeling of acceptance and the feeling of not having to hide anything about yourself anymore.
Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna add a comment and then I'm gonna hand it over to you, Justin. I just thought of the the power that women have to rebirth men. That's something that I learned first in Ars Amorata and from Zan. I think he writes about it in his book as well. And I love what he said, Jeff, because if you don't show up authentically as who you are as a man, then women cannot give you this gift of rebirth. Because if you show up as someone fake, as someone, whatever, he uses scripted pickup lines, who presents a facade of who he really is, then there is no way that you can feel the sense of being fully embraced, accepted into a woman's life, into a woman's body, as you said, and experience this feeling of complete rebirth that women have the power to give us men, but only if we show up authentically, right? Am I getting that right, Jeff?
Yes, I think 100%. I think that this rebirth idea from women is absolutely stunningly beautiful. I've experienced it in my own life, and it's more profound for me at this point in my life because of everything you just said, Marvin. Because I'm not hiding anything. This is who I am. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, whatever. This is how I'm showing up in people's worlds, not as a perfect man, not trying to be a perfect man, but also aware of my shit and like trying to work on it. And and I would suggest that for all of us, but particularly being as authentic as possible, experiencing this rebirth that you're just talking about, Marvin. It's the most incredible, profound thing. And it's more than just like a it's more than just like a sexual act. There's something spiritual in it, you know? There's something hormonal in it, as far as like how our hormones are probably becoming regulated in a different way because of this acceptance and because of this sort of welcoming from another and the proximity of her to us, and the bond that we get to share with each other through oxytocin bonding and these kinds of hormonal things as well. And it also allows us to help regulate our nervous systems. And this is such a huge part of the thing too. We wonder why we're so anxious all the time. Well, the more we're like hiding our authentic selves from the world, the more anxious we're going to be, because it's like we constantly have to like do this dance of, did I say this then? And I have to cover my tracks for this and whatever else. No. You know, in this way, we can become more calm and more at peace. And to me, that is an extremely valuable goal to try to hit in the world. Calm, peaceful state. And I also feel like that also helps strengthen our masculine, because the masculine is calm, peaceful, centered, strong. That strong foundation I was talking about. It's like that immovable force, the immovable mountain, right? That the weather, the snow, the sleet, the rain, the winds are constantly pounding against, right? But the masculine is calm and strong and powerful within all that. So, yeah.
And that,
So many thoughts coming up.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Let me
listening
just,
to you guys.
yeah. Sorry,
So,
just go ahead, Justin.
yeah, go ahead, Marvin. No, no, you go
I
ahead.
just wanted to add, like I like the image of the mountain, the strong, powerful mountain, and then that gives women the permission and the ability to be their free flowing, maybe slightly more chaotic emotional force that she can be, if she knows that you are there and there's this mountain that she can return to, right?
Yes, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
It's like that because we're creating a foundation of safety, and and it's allowing her to express however she wants to express within that foundation. And it is chaotic. The feminine is chaotic. The feminine is all over the map. The feminine is the weather. It's clear and sunny now, and 10 minutes from now, it's a downpour. That is the nature of the feminine. But that doesn't mean it's bad, and that doesn't mean it's the masculine is better than that. No, but it's a matter of, as men in the world who are trying to come more into their masculinity and who want to have great relations with women, to understand that and to have grace for that. And I'm never saying to accept bad behavior in your life. No. If she's abusive, if she is dishonest, you know, if she's disrespectful, no. That is not welcomed. That is not healthy feminine. I'm talking about the flow, the flow of the feminine. It's just flowing where it goes. It's just flowing. It's feeling. And we can dance with that by being solid for it. And when we do, it makes her nervous system regulate, more relaxed, kind of brings her down, makes her feel more grounded. And it also gives her the ability to be herself, like you're saying, be who she is. And within that, us not, us being sort of immovable, it shows her that we're not cutting and running at you know, the first look of the wacky, crazy feminine, right? We're not like running away. We are solid to it. And because I care about you, my dear. I'm here, my dear. I see you, my dear. I understand you, my dear. There are few things more important to a woman than to feel understood, heard and understood. And by us being there as that strong container and foundation, it makes her feel like, okay, this guy understands the nature of women and he's cool with it. And he's trying his best to just, be solid for me. She might feel that intellectually, understand that intellectually, but she's going to feel it in her body in a profound way. And a lot of women don't get to experience this. And this is why women can be difficult sometimes. This is why they are shit testing a lot, because they don't ever feel safe within feeling understood and accepted also for who they are and that they matter. The more we're willing to be here and be solid, it's communicating to her that she matters to us. And so these are all things that we, as the masculine, as that safe container, can provide for the women in our lives and the feminine in our lives.
Wow, so I have many thoughts coming up hearing your discussion.
Yeah.
And one is, one of the greatest female fantasies is to be pure chaos within the order that a masculine man provides. And if you tie this to the essence of the archetypal lover, you could argue it is a defendable position that a true lover actually understands a woman better than she understands herself. He sees a potential, and this is reciprocal. Women can do the same for men. The greatest women are the ones that see the potential in the man he can't see in himself. The true lover that comes into a woman's life sees her at her fullest, most feeling, like you talked about earlier, her deepest expression of her feeling of trusting the guy, and this extends all the way from your first conversation with her to being in bed with her. She just trusts you as the man so much that she can turn her brain off and just focus fully on feeling the depth of her experience. Because she trusts that you not only care for her, you might even care for her more than she cares about herself, because you understand her nature and who she is. Because, we all have issues and we don't think we're good enough. And that is as true for women as it is for men. And I think I wanted to tie this back to something that you mentioned earlier in the discussion, Jeff, which is the state of calmness versus the state of anxiety and stress. And my theory, if I can posit a hypothesis, is that a lot of people are stressed and anxious and depressed and all these negative emotions all the time because they're not living their own life. They're living the life that someone else planned out for them. I quote Dostoevsky in White Nights. He says, "For how can you live and have no story to tell?" And that makes you think, or at least it makes me think, whose life are you really living? Are you living the life that is truest to your nature? Or are you living a life that was planned out for you by your parents, by your friends that want to keep you at their level? Controversial statement, I know. And there's this idea of renunciation in the Amorati, which you guys have both done, and reinvention. You have to, Marvin, I say this every episode, you have to kill your old self to become who you were always meant to be. In Joseph Campbell terms, he says, we must let go of the life that we have planned so that we can live the life that is waiting for us. I terribly butchered that quote. But the idea is, if what you're currently doing isn't working, you have to let it all go. There's an interesting distinction. I'm tying some threads together here that Johnny Saporno makes. He's like, most people engage in escapism because they hate the life that's in front of them. They hate it. And so they escape into escapism and they think about a different life, fantasy, when what they should really do is escape. They should get on their feet and leave the shitty life behind they don't love. Johnny's a wordsmith. And I think how many people are just anxious because time is passing, assuming time is linear. We have so much time and you're never going to get any of it back and you're spending it living for other people. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this because that can be a great cause of, oh, another year went by and I was trying to keep these people happy and I was dying on the inside. What do you guys think?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, 100% agree. Um, this is aside from feeling profound acceptance, of course, the journey toward authenticity is just being able to live within the peace of the fact that I am living to what is true for me, whatever that looks like. And yeah, I think it takes so much of, and when you're not worried and concerned about what other people are thinking or how they're viewing you, or you're not as worried about losing love and connection because you're being your full authentic self. Because unfortunately, our family systems, our societal systems, they want to keep us at a certain place because that's what's familiar and comfortable to them. And they don't necessarily know how to negotiate a new space with you. And but it's vitally important that we say to the people in our lives, in terms of this authentic living to our authentic selves, that I still love and care for you, but this is who I am. This is where I'm going, and I would like to have you in my life if that's what's true for you. um, but if you're not willing to accept me for who I am, then our relationship is going to be diminished because that is also my boundary. I only want to be around people who accept me for who I am and who love me for who I am. And it's not easy to do that, of course, but it's a very important thing to be able to stand in the conviction of that. And our integrity is based on living what is true for us. And despite any pushback from society, family, girlfriends, whoever, we're going to still do it. That's our integrity. And at some point or another, we have to decide what's more important. Is my personal integrity, my personal conviction, me really having the life that I really want and deserve, is that more important than maybe keeping a few relationships or keeping things smooth with certain people in life or whatever? We have to decide what's more important to us. For me, what's more important for me is to be living my full authentic self. And the people that belong in my life will stay there, and the people that don't belong in my life will drop away. And I'm okay with that because I also know I'm going to create other love and connection, probably even more powerful love and connection, based on who I authentically am. And I think if we hang on to this idea, it makes this process of transformation a bit easier.
What do you
I
think,
agree.
Marvin?
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, I love that you touched on this subject because it's exactly what I've been. It's been my journey, my path for the past few years, especially in regards to expectations of parents, of family, of older friends that see you in a certain light and have their own ideas for your life. And it's very difficult because in my case, there was a lot of feeling of guilt and of shame attached to living my own life and saying no to what my parents wanted for me, even though they have provided so much for me. but still saying, no, this, I have to do this. I have to go out into the world and make my own life. And I still love you, but I will do this. I have to do this now, else I will die inside. And
Yeah.
yeah, for me, it wasn't one moment. It's been a process over the past couple of years, and I'm probably still to some extent in that process. But it's one of the most important things, one of the most important journeys I've ever gone on in my life, to go out and find what is the life that I truly want to live. What's this yearning, this desire that's calling me forth, that's calling me to this adventure. That's There's some life that still wants to be lived within me, and I think every man has that call at some point in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe to
Jeff,
turn that into
because
a question. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Um,
go ahead, Marvin.
Yeah, so I think this yearning exists probably within every man, and every man at some point hears the call to adventure. How do you how do you know when to follow that call, or how do you even become aware enough to listen to these calls that are coming to your heart, that are pulling your heart at all times? Like how do you even start to pay attention to that, Jeff? Maybe you can speak from your own experience or any advice you may have.
Yeah, I think Zan is so right on the money with this when he talks about a life of quiet contemplation. And that's where the Amorati daily ritual was born from, asking ourselves with our journal, who are we, and what do we want our lives to look like? And really sitting in that question. And and I think, whether it's every day when you wake up or some part of the day, have a regular practice, if you will, of just being with yourself, turning this off or putting it on airplane mode, right? And sitting quietly with yourself, with your thoughts. This is something that we tend to resist because a lot of us have trauma that we've experienced in our either childhoods or throughout, and we spend the day numbing ourselves with social media or with movies or with alcohol or whatever, trying to avoid feeling this and letting this stuff come up, right? And so I'm mindful of that, and it's not easy to sit quiet. Some people, it's very difficult for them to sit quietly with themselves. However, I also know that if we continue to push down things that we've experienced that we don't want to face or look at or see, it is going to manifest in our lives in some very negative ways. We're going to be, we're going to develop addictive behaviors, probably. It's going to affect our relationships. Meanwhile, we want love and connection and relationships in our lives, so we're self-defeating, you know. So so it's not easy, but we have to, on some level, whether it's working with a mental health practitioner to try to clear out some of this stuff, we have to be able to get to this point where we can sit quietly and start to understand ourselves more and start to raise our awareness of ourselves more, to really know this is what I want, and these are my values. This is what I like. This is what I want to do. Life is short. This is how I want to be spending it. And trying to let your unique voice come through, and separating that voice from also the voice of our parents and the voice of the people that are around us, or the voices of the religion we were born into. I mean, this is deep stuff, guys. From birth, we are indoctrinated and programmed with ideas that aren't necessarily ours. So it's up to us as healthy adults in the world to try to separate the programming from this is who I am. And it's the most important thing to do, because it creates more of a healthy way to go through life. And it's healthier for you to start processing this stuff up and out, and start letting it go. and have faith in the fact that yes, some people may reject you from your life, from their lives because of how you're changing, but you're going to have a lot more people come in. So love and connection is always going to be there. It just might look a little different than it does now. I hope that answers it. But
So at its core, this sounds like a discussion around people pleasing. And there's this interesting experiment that you can do in your mind. If what it took to make everyone else in the world happy, but what it cost was your happiness, would you take it? Or would you make yourself happy at the expense of everyone else in the world to take things to extremes? Because I'm extreme. And Jeff,
yeah,
because you have a background in helping men overcome these people pleasing, approval seeking patterns, whether that's friends, family, girls, how do you help men overcome this? What would you say to a guy that is listening to this podcast that struggles with this eternal problem of people pleasing, and especially so in our age that we live in? And one more thing I'll add, a lot of women don't respect men today because, well, simply stated, men don't know who they are and what they want. Right? So, Jeff, what would you say to a guy that's listening to this podcast that is struggling with people pleasing patterns and approval seeking, placing what other people think of him above him going on the great adventure that is his life, that he knows deep down, but is too afraid to act on?
yeah. At this the simplest kind of way I could put it, at the core of this nice guy paradigm and approval seeking is that we have internalized as very young kids that we have to be what other people think we should be in order to get our needs met and in order to be loved. We develop this belief, especially at a very early age, even before our brain is fully developed, obviously, because as men, our brain is still developing until we're about 25, 26 years old. So think about that. So we're very much still in our primitive brain, which is called the amygdala. So as we go through our childhood, we're born into this world as very needy, vulnerable creatures. And when we don't have those needs um, met properly, we're sitting in our diaper a little too long. We start to have these negative sort of emotional experiences around these things, and this is what lays a foundation of there's something wrong with me. I'm
Mm,
the cause of this. And because as kids, we are very self absorbed that way. We are narcissistic in that way. We believe that everything negative and bad that's happening to us is our fault. So it's a belief that we develop, but it's an inaccurate belief. It isn't our fault. So we set about our lives trying to be what we think other people want us to be, based on this foundation that unfortunately was created in childhood.
mm,
And we also go through life in this toxic shame of, well, if I have to be what other people think that I should be, then I have to go about hiding everything about myself that I think is going to get me rejected from the world, or get me
mm,
rejected from love and connection, get or get me left, you know, get me abandoned. So we start to hide all of these different things. But to boil it down to the simplest thing is that you have to challenge that belief. If you believe you're unworthy and undeserving and that there's something wrong with you and that you have to be this, that, and the other thing to get love and connection from other people, you have to start challenging that. Now, as adults, in our awareness, we have to start challenging those beliefs, because eventually we're going to see that it's total bullshit. And we've been living to that lie and making decisions most of our lives based on this inaccurate belief about ourselves. So, of course, if we are believing that we are going to get love and connection through being what we think other people want us to be, then of course we're going to be seeking the approval of everyone around us constantly, right? It just makes sense. Like, I don't want to rock the boat. I want to keep it smooth. I'm not going to be too polarizing. I'm not going to say what my values and beliefs are because I kind of need to hide them because I'm afraid of how the other person's going to take it. You know, that's basically how we go about living our lives, and it doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve our authentic trust in the world. It doesn't serve us coming into our full authenticity in the world. And in terms of women, in terms of us trying to bring women into our lives as adult men, as soon as we're showing up in her world, worrying about how she's going to approve or disapprove of us or wanting her validation or whatever that is, she is immediately going to reject that from her life. So, sometimes it's like we're wondering, it's like, what did I do wrong? I'm like, I'm such a nice guy. I want to treat her so well, you know? But it's showing up with this approval seeking is so needy that, of course, every woman, it does not feel good in her body to be approached in that way or to feel that from a man. Because a man, she wants to feel, is strong and powerful and has his shit together and knows who he is and has that horizon he's looking out to. He's not looking to her for anything except, hey, I think you're pretty cool and I want you to join me on this adventure. That's what she wants to feel. But anything beyond that, in terms of like trying to become something you're not just to please her or just to get her to take her clothes off or whatever it is, it doesn't work. And she's going to reject that from her life massively. So, did I hit on everything, Justin, that you wanted me to say there? It's deep, but it's so important to for us to understand where these kind of behaviors come from, that these are our patterns of behavior, and we have to become aware of them to then say, "Oh shit, there I go again. I'm trying to get her to approve of me again," right? But
Right.
realizing it in the moment, understanding this is our pattern of behavior, and interrupting those patterns with our awareness, saying, "No, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this
Perfect.
anymore."
In Amrati, we say awareness is curative. Awareness is always the first step. You have to know the problem exists before you can take action to solve it, right? And I think this is not even a
Yes.
thing about age, because how many 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old men are still boys? We talked about initiation at the start. They never grew up, and so
Yep.
I would be curious what you two think about what are some modern forms of initiation for men to go from boyhood to manhood. We had Anthony on the podcast last week, and traveling the world, putting yourself into a foreign country and seeing what you're made of is one form of this masculine initiation. But what about the guy that's in one location? He cannot travel because of limiting beliefs or a circumstance. What are some other forms do you guys think that exist of modern day masculine initiation? One other thing I'll posit before I hand it off to you guys is initiation through accountability and responsibility through brotherhood, through the Amorati. If you don't have a group of people, then you have to go find it. Traveling the world is one. Initiation through brotherhood is one with similar values. What else do you guys think?
Yeah, I will add one thing, and then I would love to hear what you have to say, Jeff. And when you spoke, and when you just spoke, I had this image come to mind of this powerful king warrior who has his battle to fight, who has his mission in life. He's looking towards the horizon. He sees the army approaching, right? He has something he can fight. He wants to fight for in life, and he has a path he needs to go. So, in to tie it back to what you said, Justin, in the modern world, if you have a 9 to 5, and your mission this week is to finish the report, whatever it is, and you got to print it and you got to email it to someone. That's like that's as far as your horizon goes. Like, how do you, how do you either break out of that, or how do you create this vision to the horizon in your life? Like, that's I would add to that what you said, Justin.
Yeah, I think Justin, it's such an important question because, and it might be, aside from authenticity and what we're believing and what our patterns are, it's probably the most important thing to sit in, because we have to initiate ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. Nobody's going to show up and do it. You know, thankfully now we're in the information age where we can find guys like Zan and Dr. Glover and Johnny Saporno and these guys that are out there that are trying to put their arm around other men and be like, hey kid, let me tell you a couple of things, you know? So we're so gifted with that. But to but we also have to take the action, because those guys can tell us all the information that until they're blue in the face. But if we don't actually show up and take the action, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to shift. We're going to continue sitting on the couch, right? So for me, it boils down to this. And really what it is becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, leaning into challenge, leaning into the unknown, leaning into discomfort. And for me, it's yes, whatever you feel is going to challenge you, start doing it, and do it in small little steps so you're not blowing out your nervous system. So if you're leaning into a particular challenge that's challenge you, like a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being you know, your nervous system is through the roof, you can barely breathe, your heart's pounding so heavy, right? Do something that's going to challenge you on like a 3 or a 4. Don't go to the 10 immediately, you know? It's going to give you a smoother ride to kind of train your nervous system to relax into all this stuff. So there's that, leaning into challenge, whatever it is that you get anxiety over, that you tend to avoid, try to lean into those things a bit more. Whatever you feel like you have some shame over in your life, try to start revealing a bit of yourself in the things you're carrying shame over, to your brothers, to safe people, to people who understand you and care about you. And that can be women in our lives sometimes, but I personally still feel like it's better within the brotherhood first. Nobody understands us more than other men. It's just the reality of the situation. Where in life can we set a boundary? You know, where can we set a boundary with another human being that, we let them get away with things because we don't want to rock the boat or whatever it is, but where can we set a boundary with kindness and say, you know what, when you do that, I don't like it. Can we do it a little differently? Where in our lives can we assert ourselves? Be more assertive. The waiter brings the soup and the soup is lukewarm, and you like hot soup, but you're just like, I'll deal with it, because you don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to be confrontational, whatever. No, with kindness, call the waiter over and say, would you please heat up the soup? It's just a little too warm for me. You know, that kind of assertive um, thing, a very small thing, it eventually adds up to bigger things and how you want to assert yourself in life. And then the last thing is the community of men. Having a community of men is one of the most important things we can do to create masculine initiation, because we challenge ourselves with love like no other. We are calling each other to a higher standard. And that's the way it should be with men, because that's what makes us better, stronger men. So that's what I'll say about that. But it is one of the most important things to think about as men in the world, initiating ourselves into something greater And that is our birthright, and that is something that we should be doing.
Yeah, the modern man is in a perilous situation. And I think of Stan said it perfectly in one of the speeches he gave. He said, "You must look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that no one is coming to save you as a man living in this modern age. You have to look yourself in the eyes and say, I got you. I will take care of you. Because no one else is coming to save you or to take care of you. You have to go forth into the world. And if what is your current reality isn't serving you, then you have to change it in that way."
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
that's another thing about becoming a man, leaving boyhood behind and becoming a
Mhm.
man, taking full responsibility for where we are, and full
Wow.
responsibility for where we're going, and the full
Taking
embrace.
responsibility
Yeah,
for your own
absolutely. And
life.
absolutely 100%. And recognize the fact that our best thinking got us to where we are. So if we're on the couch, and we're doing nothing with our lives, it's not to say you haven't had trauma and difficult situations and all that, but we are still, if we're doing that, we're complicit in that. So it's time to take responsibility for the fact that our best thinking got us on the couch. We have to change our thinking, change our beliefs, lean into the challenges of life, become men, and then everything starts to change. And then
Wow.
it's
I
like,
really love that.
yeah, and it's like, guys want to have women in their lives, they want to have sex in their life, they want all these different things that women provide, but they're not willing to do that. They're not willing to become a man. And women want to be with men. They don't want to be with boys. They want to be penetrated by men. Masterful, strong, powerful men who know who they are, know where they're going, having a damn good time getting there. You know, that's the kind of guy that a woman wants to be penetrated by and give herself to and follow.
I think of a quote by Jung because when we talked about personal responsibility, Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is the dichotomy. That is the difference between the unconscious, that is the part of a man that wants to be great, that wants to be fully himself, that knows he has what it takes, that can show up, like you said at the start, fully representing himself in any room, any country, any city, anywhere in the world. And yet, most men just, and we talk about this a lot, Marvin, most men just exist. They quietly survive. They become more and more hopeless and despair every day because, well, I already had so many days behind me where I didn't do anything. So what can I do now? And it doesn't have to be that way, is what we're saying. Right. And so
Yeah.
that aspect of personal responsibility is maybe that's what's missing in men in society is just taking responsibility for your life. It's your life after all. And yeah, it's really interesting to think about. What do you think, Marvin?
I think it's the most important thing. Like to realize that, as you said, no one is coming to save you. To look yourself into the eyes and make that choice. Make and realize that you can make a choice in your life that makes a difference. You don't have to
Yeah.
accept where you've been born, how you've been raised, what religion you've been raised in, what community you've been raised in. You can make it. You can make a
Yeah.
different choice, and you can go out there. But you have to take action. Go out there and seek. And I think it starts with the. I think it actually starts with listening to what your heart yearns for, and then seeking that outside in the world, like listening what is it that my heart wants, looking out into the world, seeing where it is. In my case it was reading Zan's book and then going to Bucharest and then taking action and book a flight to see your mentor, like Go visit that author. Go see that painting that's calling you forth. And that's so it's awareness, then seeking it out in the world, and then taking action. I think those things have been for me life changing.
Wow. So step one, awareness. And step two, take action. Go and shake the hand of the man that's been teaching you how to get girls for years. And
There's a
going and
story
finding
about
him. There's a
this
sort
guy
of
who, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, tell the story.
No, it's just a quick story, but I don't remember the name of this guy, but he really wanted to work with Edison, and I think it's in Edison's biography. And so he would just travel
Right.
everywhere Edison was working. And he would knock on his door and say, "Hey, I love what you do. I want to work for you. I want to work for you." He does for years and years and years, right? So he just pursue. He would just there was something in him that called him to do that, and he took action, and he just went. He didn't know if he would work with him. Eventually they ended up working together and inventing a bunch of stuff, and they created a
Right.
business, and he became rich and everything. But he didn't know that when he started, right? Like he had no idea. He just went and did it because something inside of him called him to do that.
Wow.
So yeah, maybe that's the spirit that we're trying to encourage with this conversation. That's maybe lacking this kind of encouragement, this inspiration in the world for men. And hopefully we can
Yeah.
provide some of that to anyone who's listening.
There's a sense of if you went and followed what your true heart's calling is, what is the worst that could happen? You can always go back to your life of security and comfort, right? If you live with your parents, if you'll be fine. Someone will take care of you. But what if you don't go? You'll always wonder. We talk about this a lot. When you're old and you're on your deathbed, what actually really matters is how much money you made, what your last promotion was from this to this, or the beautiful woman that you met on the beach at 3 a.m. in Rio de Janeiro where no one was around and good things happen. What actually matters in this life, you know? So I want to hand it to you, Jeff. And I think if you want to, let's get into the tradition. The last Amorati that we interviewed asked the question, who are you at this point in history, and what is your role? What have you been put on this earth to do at this point in time? That is the question to you, Jeff.
It's a great question. Um, for me, I feel like I am here at this time in history to develop myself into my full potential and help other guys who are struggling to do that, help them along the way. Be the mentor to show a path and, be one of the tribal elders who took the
The
boys away from
chieftains.
the mothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And said this is your initiation rites, brother, and this is the importance of it, and this is why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because you haven't done this yet. But be patient with yourself. You're a work in progress, and you are going to change for the better. And just show up. So that's kind of why I think I'm here at this point in time, and also to just be a good man in the world, and develop my masculinity as much as possible, to to be as solid of a man as possible, to make others around me feel safe and seen and heard and understood, and putting that good vibration out in the world. That is also another reason why I'm here. And I've talked a lot about masculinity, guys, but it's also nurturing my feminine side too, because it's very important for all of us to think about the ways that we can nurture our feminine, sit in passivity, sit in being receptive. And I want to give you guys something that I just discovered that blew my mind. But this is exactly how women feel your masculinity when you show up consistently. Go out into the sun and stand there and feel that warmth, that amazing warmth on your skin. It's constant, right? You didn't ask for it. And it feels so damn good, doesn't it? That's what your masculinity feels like to a woman when you show up in that way. And it's important for us to feel the masculine. In this case, the sun is considered the masculine. We're on Mother Earth, right? It's important for us also as masculine creatures to also feel that and be in a receptive state and develop our feminine as well. This is what helps us have more feeling in our lives. This is what helps us create more of a bridge of feeling between other humans. And in this case, you want to talk about relating more to women and being able to kind of like speak within their language of feeling and create depth of connection. Nurturing our feminine side is essential. So don't discount it. So I just want to leave you guys with that thought as well.
Do you have a question you would like to ask a future guest, unknown guest?
Um, yes, and Justin, you were saying something, but you were muted, brother. I don't know if
Oh yeah, you were.
you're
Yes,
back
I
here.
just saw. I'm unmuted. The idea was how many men, to build on what you said, live lives that are gray and dull and lifeless. And what you said is really powerful, man. How many men feel nothing? They feel
Yeah,
nothing. They have nothing to look forward to. There's nothing that they're fighting for. There's no hill that they're willing to die on.
yeah,
So what you're saying is super powerful. How many men just are disconnected from their entire body and live from the neck up with all the brain and all
yeah,
the pickup theories and all the things and the content they consume without ever really taking that moment of quiet contemplation, like you were talking about, Jeff. And considering who am I on this earth? What am I doing here? Do I love what I'm doing? If not, why don't I change it? So yeah, but let's forward to your question, Marvin. Jeff,
yeah.
what would you like to ask the next Amrati that we interview? Doesn't have to be deep.
Um, I guess, hmm. I think that the question is in terms of life and women and the things that you're trying to do you think you can handle it? And if not, why not? Ask yourself
Hmm.
why you don't think you can handle what life throws at you. Just sitting in that question can really send you on a journey that once you start down a path of that, you will never be the same and you will be better and you will be stronger and you will have a much more fulfilling experience of life. I
That's a
think that's what I would say to
fantastic
that.
question. I can't wait to ask that to the next guy. It's there.
What a question, man. One more thing, actually. Let's just let's invent traditions. What would you say to your lost teenage, early 20s self, Jeff? What would you say to yourself, of course, and to the guy that is listening? There's plenty of nuggets and wisdom in this conversation we've had. I can feel it. But what would you say to that version of yourself that was so lost and so broken and so without direction?
Yeah.
If you can help guide the path of the next generation, like you were talking about.
Yeah. That's so great. I would say to my young 20 self, stop sabotaging yourself. That's that I sabotaged myself for most of my life because I was so insecure. I was so feeling like I couldn't measure up and that I couldn't handle it, right? Stop sabotaging yourself. That would be the number one thing I would go back and tell myself because I sabotaged myself from having great experiences, amazing experiences, fun experiences, all those incredible memories that we want to make that we're going to take, on our deathbed, right? We're talking about. So that would be the number one thing. Stop sabotaging yourself. It is. It is all within your power and control to change.
Perfect. And where can people find you? How do they get in contact with you? How do they get your people pleasing nice guy coaching? How can they find you?
Yeah, so I've been doing this past year, I've been putting up a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel. So you guys can find me there at Broflow, Broflow. Broflow Self Development is the handle for that. And the same handle as Instagram. I do some cool little like quotes and Photoshop things and stuff on Instagram. So you guys can contact me that way, or just kind of see what I'm talking about on YouTube. You know, a lot of it is kind of
Yeah.
like specific nice guy lessons. Some of it is just stream of consciousness, things I want to talk about. I have some practices, meditations, you know, just different things that are on there that have helped me on my journey. And I'm just putting stuff out there to try to help other guys as much as humanly possible. So it's there for you.
Oh, and join Essentials. It's the
And of
cheapest it's
course,
ever
join
been.
Essentials.
You'll be mentored
Yeah.
directly by Jeff.
Exactly.
Yeah. By the way, you know, joining the Amorati membership is the deal and the steal of the century, gentlemen. It's like
Honestly.
$100 a year or something. It's crazy cheap. And Essentials is an absolutely life-changing course. And
Yep.
within the course, you get access to Zan once a month. He does calls, and you get to ask questions and be in the room with the man. And that is priceless. So I
Yeah.
also run calls once a month on the essentials principles that we discuss. And it's just a great way to jump in, start revealing yourself, and just start on a path and build community. Build community. This is an amazing community. And like I said, nobody's going to understand you more than yourself. But beyond that, nobody understands you except your brothers. The women in your life do not understand you. They do not understand your struggles, believe me. They might want to try, they might want to feel into it. They care, but they still have no idea what you're going through, like your brothers will. Just like we have no idea what they're fully going through, right? So bear that in mind. Come on the journey with us as an Amorati and through essentials and in this community, and it if you show up to it and you want to change your life, it'll happen, but you have to just put in
Yeah.
some work along the way.
Yeah.
But you have to commit to yourself to making a drastic change in your life. And
100%.
signing up for
100%.
Essentials, an Amorati membership, mentored by Jeff, mentored by Zan once a month, is as great as any place to start.
And then
So
come
we'll
out
leave a link
to
for all of
Bucharest
that in the
and
description.
hang out with us.
Yes, Marvin. Yes.
Once
Come
you're
to
in
the
Amorati, yeah,
Amorati
Bucharest.
International
Yeah.
Conference. Yes.
Yeah, this May or
And-
September.
Change everything. Change everything. If your things in your life aren't working, if you don't love absolutely where you're at, Johnny asks, would you want to be your friend? And if the answer is that fuck yeah, then you have to change everything. And this is a starting point for you. So for now, this has been the Amatoria podcast. And this has been Jeff Buccellato. We'll leave links for everything. We hope this was valuable. We will see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, guys.